Let me ask you something. When you look at SpaceX, what are you actually looking at? The obvious answer is simple. Rockets. Big rockets. Famous rockets. Rockets that land, explode, relaunch, and dominate the internet every few weeks. But that answer is too small. Calling SpaceX a rocket company is like calling Amazon a bookstore. Technically true. Strategically useless. And that's why the IPO matters. Because once SpaceX enters the market, investors are not just pricing a rocket, they're pricing the machine behind it. The launch is the loud part. Fire, smoke, cheering crowds, live streams. It looks like the whole story because it is designed to be visible. But behind that flame is a chain. Factories, test stands, launch pads, satellites, ground stations, terminals, software, government contracts. The rocket is just the front door. NASA was one of the first keys to that door. Not just as a customer, but as early fuel for capability. Contracts became factories. Factories became cadence. And SpaceX is not one place. It is a map. Hawthorne, McGregor, Starbase, Florida, Vandenberg, Redmond, Bastrop. A distributed machine hiding in plain sight. Every launch starts long before ignition. It starts in rooms like this. Mission control, software, tracking, trajectories, permissions, people watching a system move. Then come the engines. Tested, stressed, fired, measured. The magic of a launch is built from very unmagical repetition. And repetition creates a new problem. Traffic. If launch becomes routine, pads become bottlenecks. Space starts looking less like exploration and more like logistics. Starbase looks like the center of the story. But it is only one node. A dramatic node, yes. But still one node in a much larger system. This is where Falcon 9 changes the rhythm. The booster comes back. And once the vehicle comes back, space stops being a one-way trip. But landing is not just a rocket trick. It needs ships, oceans, crews, timing, weather windows, recovery routes. The hidden system is underneath the miracle. Reuse is not one invention. It is a loop. Launch, land, inspect, repair, reload, launch again. That loop is the business model. Now the launch pad changes meaning. It is no longer a stage. It becomes a loading dock. The rocket becomes a delivery vehicle. And the cargo is the clue. Because inside the rocket are not just satellites. They are pieces of SpaceX's own network. Starlink is where the story flips. SpaceX stops being only a company that sends things to orbit. It becomes a company that builds infrastructure in orbit. To the customer, this looks like internet. A signal from the sky. A Wi-Fi symbol. Simple, clean, almost magical. But peel it back, and the magic touches Earth everywhere. Factories, antennas, spectrum approvals, software, terminals, ground stations. Space internet still has a ground floor. That little terminal matters. Without it, the satellite is just a machine passing overhead. The terminal turns orbit into a product, and the product moves. Homes, ships, planes, remote places. Starlink is not just broadband. It is connectivity where normal infrastructure struggles to reach. But the signal does not stay in space. It comes down. It touches antennas, cables, data centers, routing systems. The sky still depends on the ground. And that means the futuristic system can fail in very ordinary ways. Not because a rocket exploded, because software, routing, or ground infrastructure breaks. Then there is the invisible layer, permission. Radio waves, spectrum rights, licenses, country approvals. Some of SpaceX's infrastructure is made of law. Every market is a gate. Some open, some stay locked. A satellite can pass overhead, but a business still needs permission to operate below. And the network is never finished. Satellites age. Coverage changes. Demand moves. The constellation is less like a monument and more like a construction site. Old satellites leave. New satellites replace them. The system works because SpaceX can keep feeding it. Again and again and again. Orbit is not empty, it is traffic. Thousands of objects moving fast, avoiding each other, adjusting constantly. SpaceX is not just launching a fleet, it is operating one. This is the hidden mechanism, the launch to network flywheel. Rockets build the network. The network creates customers. Customers create demand. First, the rocket feeds the network. Every launch adds capacity, coverage, replacement satellites, and another piece of the orbital layer. Then the network feeds customers. Homes, ships, planes, remote regions, businesses, militaries. The more coverage improves, the more valuable the network becomes. Then customers feed launches. Revenue and demand flow backward into factories' pads, satellites and rockets. SpaceX creates demand for its own launch system. That is the loop. Launch creates network. Network creates revenue. Revenue creates more launch. This is why the rocket alone is not the moat. The loop is. Then comes the secure layer. Starshield turns the same logic toward government and defense. Satellites, connectivity, command, control, resilience. And when government becomes a major customer, SpaceX becomes more than a commercial company. It becomes part of national infrastructure. Ships, aircraft, emergency vehicles, command centers. Connectivity becomes strategic. The network is not just useful, it becomes power. This is why competitors struggle. A rival can build a rocket, but SpaceX is stacking layers: factories, engines, pads, ships, satellites, terminals, software, customers, contracts. So what is Wall Street really buying? Not just launch revenue, not just Starlink users, not just a Mars dream. It is buying an integrated infrastructure stack. That is the final reframe. SpaceX did not become powerful by building a better rocket. It became powerful by turning the rocket into the front door of a private infrastructure empire.